David, it's great to have you back and talking about the eGrocery insights for January 2023. Can you give us the takeaways for January's numbers year over year?
Yeah. Top line, we're down 1% year over year. Again, that keep in mind that includes ship to home as well as pickup and delivery. Delivery is essentially flat. It was up about a half a point during that period. Pickup was really the only segment that saw any kind of meaningful growth. It was up almost 3%. There are reasons that we can talk about for that, but that's kind of the quick top line, if you will.
Yeah, and I want to get into those reasons. Is it because of the elevated cost of the goods in the basket? How do you account for the almost 3% year over year growth?
Yeah, I mean, we're not getting in the heads of the customers. As you know, we are really looking at behaviors in terms of where they shop, how often they shop, how much they spend when they shop, and then from that we infer some things based on what we know from other data sources. If we were to try to answer that question mark, one is the cost to use pickup compared to delivery from the same retailer is going to cost less. And the reason it costs less is the fee is generally half or non-existent. That would be true in mass. But pickup, you don't have typically these other service charges or the gratuity. So when you add those in, you're talking anywhere from 6 to 10% difference just on those avoidable costs. So if someone is looking to stretch the buck, if you can avoid paying more than necessary pickup, and you don't have a strong preference between pickup and delivery other than you like to order online, then pickup's going to gain in that. So I think that's kind of one way we can read the behavioral metrics that we're measuring to make some inference as to why is someone doing that. Conversely, you could look at delivery and say, those incremental avoidable costs may be weighing on people, and they may be weighing on people who today no longer have the same level of concern about not just catching COVID, but RSV or the seasonal flu. And if that's the case, then the essential need that it was fulfilling to get the groceries now becomes more convenience oriented, and that's where we have said it recently. This is where the collision of cost meets convenience, and people are going to make trade-offs. So I think those are a variety of ways to look at and try to understand some of the shifting trends.
So one of this, well, let me say one of the long-term trends has been this decline in ship to home, which is reflected in the numbers that you share. How does this connect with the news that Amazon is increasing its delivery fees?
Okay, so two things here. You're correct that ship to home continues to decline. Amazon has a pure play component of the business that sits within ship to home. Mm-hmm. However, the news about Amazon raising their delivery fees is really outside of ship to home in the delivery segment, the way we define it.
Okay.
But there is a longer term secular move away from ship to home, or maybe said another way, softening the demand. It may still be growing, but it's just simply not growing faster than those other two segments. And as a result, it's losing share. It's losing share of wallet, share of spending as a consequence. But to your point or question about Amazon's news, it reflects or illustrates not just the challenge of the cost to serve that all retailers are facing with delivery in particular, but I think the overall traction or stickiness Amazon's having with its fresh concept and trying to find ways to improve its performance. And this is one way it's doing it. It's not to say it's ideal, especially given the timing. Some of its parts may make sense in certain contexts, but maybe not in others. So I think that's just some general observation. Again, we can talk a little further about that if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we know Walmart responded in a cheeky way. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, we know that Walmart is for most intensive purposes, the low price leader in
Yeah.
the market. There are exceptions to that, depending on the trade areas we're talking about. But I think their response was really trying to magnify or amplify the fact that for those customers who are more cost conscious today and they're trying to avoid paying more than necessary, this was a easy way to promote where and how they're different from Amazon. I think it's important to note the power of the word free, but also the power of marketing. There is a degree of license that any marketer can take, so long as they satisfy the legal concerns of making those comments. And so,
Right.
if you were to look closely at what Walmart said, it is factually accurate. However, it does footnote that restrictions apply. So it's important to note that even though delivery is free in that context, it's only free for those customers that are Walmart Plus members. And even so, it's only free so long as it's not an express order that may be delivered in 2 hours or less. So you can see the restrictions add up.
The
But move that.
parsing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But if you think about the soundbite, people say free, and free is a very powerful word. It gets someone's attention and may cause them to act in a way that benefits Walmart. If then the fine print gets in the way, that's something they'll have to address.
So what do you think? What do you think this means for regionals who are looking at this? Walmart's first of all, Amazon's move, Walmart's response, and as narrowly defined as it is within the context of free for their plus members. What do you think regionals should be thinking and reacting?
Well, I think the regional should be thinking, how can we promote some aspect of our service as being free? How
Mm-hmm.
can we start to introduce and promote free within the context of our online service? There are regionals, as you know, Mark, that are promoting, even in their weekly circular, free pickup, when in reality, that's only the option if you want it maybe 4 or 5 hours later today or tomorrow. If you wanted it sooner or expedited, you're paying a fee that's $3.95 or $6.95. But again, the point is, how can the e-commerce team work with marketing to really promote that feature and get legal on board to say that's what we need to do? Because
Well,
clearly, go ahead.
no. I was just gonna say, okay. So I'm confused because we've talked about as part of the strategy for regionals, they need to build in some pricing disparity between their marketplace, their first party, and their in store. So, what do you mean by marketing the service as free? Are you suggesting that regionals get away from having pricing based on pickup time slots?
Again, this is one of the dangers of talking about what it means or what retailers should do in a broad
Mhm.
context, because we're really absent the context for that specific retailer who may be listening to this. So, first of all, we would believe regional grocers should charge a fee, whether it's for pickup or delivery,
Right.
because there is a cost to them for providing the service. It is a value added service, and that fee is a reminder, an explicit reminder. At the same time, you can introduce the notion of free as a way to change behaviors in ways that benefits both parties. So you can look at the stratifying of a fees relative to when you receive an order as an
Right.
example of stratifying, or you can stratify fees based on average order, which is what Amazon Fresh has just done. It's only free for those who spend $150 or more. If it's under 50, it's $9.95, and then it graduates up through two more tiers up until the free level. But you could, in some cases, say if you want to use our pickup fee for same day, it's $4.95. However, if you want free to pickup service, you could use it for next day. All right, which means you need to place the order today for tomorrow. And where's the benefit? Well, one, the customer benefits in avoiding paying that additional pickup fee. And what's the benefit to the retailer? Well, the benefit to the retailer is you now can batch that order for assembly with possibly one or more other orders, reducing the pick cost, and that could reduce the pick cost substantially, minimum 30%, even if you batched it with just one other order and maybe more.
So,
So that would be an example of where and how a regional could introduce the
but
notion of free while still reflecting the value-added costs associated with the service.
so what do you think of connecting it to a membership program or a loyalty program, for either on the loyalty side as a benefit or membership for a fee to help offset what ostensibly would be
Yeah.
a free charge for delivery or pickup?
So the membership is one way to kind of hook them in. Some would say handcuff them, but it's
Yeah.
generally set up on a monthly basis. So there isn't a long lag if someone's unhappy with it. The only thing that you could be banking on is someone forgets to cancel and you make money on on that. But that's not a good strategy. But keep in mind, when you bring out membership, specifically the way traditional grocers have done it, it generally appeals to your existing customers who are already placing 2 orders with you or more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because, people do back of the envelope calculations to see if the juice is worth the squeeze, right? I mean, if it's $9.95 a month and I'm placing one order a month and I'm paying $9.95, the only way it really makes sense for me is if I go to place a second order, because now I'm essentially only paying half the fee if I spread it across the 2. This is why it's so important for the retailers to have other benefits associated with the membership. Walmart has fuel discounts. That's a big one because you can save up to 10 cents per gallon. There's a lot of other features or benefits they may put in there, but that's really it. So the membership could be a way where you tuck it in there as justification for how you can promote free. And that's the way Walmart has done it, because keep in mind, you don't have to be a Walmart Plus member to get delivery or pickup from Walmart. It's just that the free delivery is associated only with a Walmart Plus membership.
Yep. Yeah, and that's a good point, that if all you have is just the one core element, which would be free pickup or delivery to your membership program, you might find yourself not getting a lot of traction with your existing shoppers.
I think the other thing, Mark, with kind of a learning here, know thy customer, is something that I've observed, at least in our market. I'm not sure if this is happening everywhere in the U.S., but if you were to go on the Walmart app today, you would see, for instance, time blocks that are reserved specifically for Walmart Plus customers. So today and tomorrow, between the hours of 3, I think it's 3 and 6 or 3 and 7, the only people who can actually get a delivery from Walmart are Walmart Plus.
Yeah.
So they basically, that's almost like getting to the front of the line with airlines, right? That, okay, now we're going to take our 1,000-mile person and our Admirals Club or whatever. So if you are a Walmart customer and you said, yeah, I'd like to use their delivery, but shoot, I can't get a delivery between 5 and 6 because they're blocked out for Walmart Plus only, well, then that may be the straw that breaks the Walmart customer's back, that converts them into a Walmart Plus. So you can see an interesting kind of difference in the approach. But again, one's coming from a traditional brick and mortar, expanding into this space, and Amazon is really the disruptor trying to come in the traditional physical space. So I think regionals can learn something from this ordeal. And I could add one more thing about memberships if you want, Mark, relative to, in particular, Amazon and some of the thoughts or hypotheses that we have relative to other reasons that we would believe are potentially more probable as to the increase.
Yeah, I'd love to hear that hypothesis.
Yeah, so I think publicly Amazon has said something to the effect of, we are raising our purchase minimum from 35 to 150 in order to manage our costs and keep our product prices low.
Right.
That is the message that they put out there. And I think largely the media has accepted that as very plausible, which, in this day and age with inflation, who wouldn't think that was not a good reason? But one question you'd ask is, well, if they're doing it, is everyone else doing that?
Right.
And the observation we would make is we're not seeing that elsewhere. And there are plenty of people who could use the same justification. I think more likely or more probable, we believe it's in the strategy that Amazon's pursued to grow its membership base. Keep in mind that, based on other secondary sources, Prime membership in the U.S. May have peaked in 2021 and actually declined marginally in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
I did some back of the envelope numbers. If you were to believe those numbers, where they estimate that 168 million, there are 168 million members with Prime membership in 2022. Just on a household basis, if we assign one membership to one household, that's obviously 130% of households. We know that there's generally. Go ahead.
I can tell you, in my house we have 3.
You have 3, and in my house we have at least 2 that I'm aware of. So if we looked at it based on overall population, it's 50% penetration. Well, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old hopefully doesn't have a Prime membership yet. They may be coming. But if we then restricted it to the population 18 and over in the U.S., that's about 2/3 penetration. So we may very well be at kind of peak Amazon membership. Yeah. But one of the things that I think gets overlooked is not that Amazon raised its membership fee from to $14.99 per month, but is that they offer 2 discounted tiers of membership with the same benefits of the full priced $14.99 membership. That is one for students, which if you're a student, you would pay $6.95 a month, and then there is the low income, the households that use various government assistance programs, whether it be SNAP, and they also pay around $6.99 a month versus $14.99. So let's just think about that. You're low income, fixed income. You can qualify based on the eligibility requirements. Now you pay your $6.99 a month, and you place one order a month. Even at one order a month with free delivery, there is no other place in the U.S. that I'm aware of that would offer delivery for only $6.99 for a single order. Now, keep in mind, someone gets it, they're going to now kind of run with it. Maybe say, I'm going to place 2 orders a month. Now they're essentially paying $3 an order for delivery. No one, not even Walmart, comes close to that. Yeah. Walmart's membership is $12.95 a month. So they most likely achieved their objectives of attracting or converting Amazon customers into Prime members. But I think what they've likely learned is that those that converted to Prime members really, really cherry-picked Amazon in just simply buying groceries online for delivery, and maybe didn't sign up for video or other services, or didn't buy products on the marketplace. So that's a hypothesis. Obviously, we can't validate from the outside, but we would hope, although we wouldn't assume, but we would hope Amazon will have done that analysis. And if they did, they very likely would have had that as a main rationale for the price increase, and using something like higher cost to serve as the kind of the public rationale.
So David, let me ask you this. From the regional grocer's perspective, what Amazon did by increasing the minimum on delivery, does this give regionals the license to do something similar? And should they?
I think it doesn't necessarily change the calculus, other than now a regional grocer can point to someone like Amazon Fresh as evidence as to why they should consider changing theirs. We would say even before this, we would have encouraged retailers to assess their purchase minimums relative to the cost to serve, and make the necessary adjustments. But at the same time, when recommending a move up, we would prefer to see a little more of kind of a stair step up to that level. Very few retailers would make as sizable a jump as Amazon just did from 35 to 150. What more likely we would see and recommend would be, moving from 35 to 75 or 35 to 50, but doing it over multiple periods, whether that's quarters or years, and looking very closely at the distribution of orders based on average order value to inform what makes sense for your business. Because if your average order value sits at, let's say, $90, that's a mean of all of those. But what you'd really want to look at is what percentage of orders are, above that minimum. Now, if you're a traditional grocer with a first party delivery service, and whether you white label the distribution of the orders or deliver them yourself, if you have free delivery at $35, the question is what percentage of orders qualify for that? Well, at Amazon, it was essentially 100%, and that doesn't make sense. What you want to do is use the purchase minimum as a mechanism to change behavior in a way that benefits you in terms of increasing the basket size.
That makes sense.
Because that helps with the cost leverage that you have, because now you have more dollars in the basket to spread those costs against. So what we would generally recommend retailers to do is, yes, look at your minimums, but within that context, and to make those moves. And keep in mind, if you're concerned about your price position versus that of Mass or Walmart in particular, from other research, and this market Mercatus, is that knowing your customer, or specifically your core customer, and let's just really boil it down. Who's the core customer? The core customer is your heavy user. And heavy user, we mean most frequent user. A person who's using it 2-3 times a month. And look at how it could impact them. But we know that people shop with the regional grocer more so because of convenience than because of cost. And that makes sense, because if it was because of cost or price, everyone would be shopping at Walmart, because the price gaps that Walmart enjoys versus most regionals is a very significant spread that has only widened as Walmart's really tried to hold the line much more so on price increases. And they can do so only because of its scale. So, if we know thy customer, we look at it a little more smartly. We could potentially move up our average order values by raising our purchase minimums, but we would urge a little more caution in the magnitude of those changes. 35 to 150 is a large jump all at once. That's clearly going to cause some blowback and some dissatisfied customers. We already can see that on the social networks, especially those that are on fixed income or low income, who might have been benefiting with those discounted Prime memberships. So clearly, you got to weigh the pros and the cons when making these decisions. And that's why we try to refrain from making broad sweeping recommendations to the industry, because, as you know, Mark, really depends on who we're talking to, where they're at within their journey online, and what other components of their strategy are they currently implementing that could influence or affect, that decision.
You're absolutely right, David. And I think it's all about context, and as you said, knowing your customers and knowing who's buying from you and how often. David, I think we've come to the end of our video for this month. Next month, I think we're going to have a bit of a surprise, because I will not be available. So we'll have to come up with something a little creative to share with the audience. So great as always. Yeah. And I look forward to seeing you in some capacity in 30 days.
Sounds good, Mark. Thank you once again, as always, for having the opportunity to share our perspectives on the monthly insights.
Fantastic. And if anyone is interested in getting further information from David, just reach out to him at Brick Meets Click, and or reach out to Mercatus myself, and I'd be happy to make the introduction.